on the money, as the team at Certified Financial Group has been doing for nearly 4 decades here on WDBO. With over 400 years of experience inside those walls, the audience of WDBO and the area of Central Florida knows they can trust the Certified Financial Group for any questions they may have. So if you have any questions, by all means, call in today. Chris, Joe, how are we doing today?
Good morning, Josh. Great, Josh. Appreciate you being here. And I understand you got a little bit under the weather. You sound a little bit more subdued this morning, if that's the appropriate term, but we're glad you're here.
Your radio voice, right?
Yeah, toughing it out for us. Anyway, as you said in the intro, Chris and I are here to take calls from our listeners. This is a live call-in radio show. This is not a 1-hour infomercial. These are the questions that we answer for our clients day in and day out, Monday through Friday, providing retirement planning and investment management for a fee. But I like to say on Saturday morning, we are here for you absolutely free. So if there's anything on your mind, questions that you might have, things you've heard about stocks, bonds, real estate, long-term healthcare, mutual funds, annuities, ETFs, reverse mortgages, all that and more, the things that Chris and I and the 15 other certified financial planners work with, we have those answers for you. If we don't have the answers, we know where to find them. So the good news for you, if there's anything on your mind about any of those topics or anything else I might not have mentioned, the lines are absolutely wide open. And all you have to do is pick up the phone and dial these magic numbers.
The magic numbers are 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO, or as always, you can send in your open mic using that free WDBO app. The topic of today's show for Chris and Joe, smart ways to give to charity.
Smart ways, Chris.
Smart ways, that's right. We don't want to do
the dumb ways.
Dumb ways.
No, let's do smart ways.
Yeah, there you go. Smart ways to give to charity. So why even give to charity to begin with, Joe? That's the big
Well,
question.
personally, you do it for the appropriate reasons, and that's to satisfy your soul. You know, give back some of the blessings that you've been blessed with. And then the next thing is, if you can do that at the same time, get a tax break. That's a double win.
That's right. Yeah. So
Did I answer that correctly
I love
there?
that response, and that wasn't pre-rehearsed. So,
Okay.
you know, like I said, there are tax benefits, and some people give for that reason. I think most people give because they do want the entity that they're giving to, be it their church, synagogue, you know, the food bank, homeless shelter, whatever that might be. But you know, something I wanted to we talk about tax benefits a lot. Just to tee this up, I wanted to take a minute and talk about another benefit that we don't hear about a whole lot, but I kind of stumbled across recently, and I thought, hey, it's worth mentioning, and then we'll get into some of the smart ways to give.
Okay.
Fun fact here, neuroscience. Okay, not every day we talk about neuroscience on the money, right? Neuroscience shows that when you give, your brain's mesolimbic system, that's the reward center. It lights up in the same way it does when you eat a great meal or receive money yourself. Who knew?
There you go.
So your brain actually triggers a response.
You know, there is something to that, because I have experienced that. You know, when you hit that button or you make that contribution, you do get that hit.
Well,
it doesn't last long, but you get the hit.
It doesn't last long, but it's there. And, you know, so there's research constantly shows something called a giver's glow that's reflected in your heart rate and brain scans and even tax brackets of those who give doing better.
All right.
So, you know, giving seems to trigger a psychological glow that personal spending doesn't match. There's something known as a 43% rule, according to a General Social Survey. People who give to charity are 43% more likely to say they're very happy than non-givers. Isn't that interesting?
That's interesting.
So almost half the people say they're more happy. So Harvard study, so straight out of Boston up there, or Cambridge, Harvard study found spending money on others has a similar impact on happiness, get this, Joe, as doubling your own household income. Spending on others.
Spending on others. Does that mean your kids?
Well, kids are part of it.
I guess.
Definitely spend on kids, right?
I guess.
But, you know, it's interesting because tying this together, I had a meeting this week with a client. She said, you know, her husband sort of changed careers later in life, and he's doing something he loves now, and he's making money.
Good.
And she said, you know, when he says, here, take $100 and go get yourself something at the Chico's or whatever. She said he just lights up. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
She validated
Right.
what the studies show.
Yeah.
Givers are 68% less likely to report feeling hopeless compared to those who do not give.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I'm going to digress here. You know, we were just talking about the positive feelings that you did. You know, as you know, and some of our listeners know, we do an annual event. We go off campus and we do that. And of course, that's paid for by the company, and which is me. But there is a benefit. I feel really great about doing that. It's
Yes.
it's just a wonderful feeling of being able to give and seeing people enjoy something like
Yes.
that. How true that? I never thought about that, but that 100%, 100%.
Isn't it interesting?
yeah,
So
yeah,
now physical health, and then we'll shift into
Yeah, go
some of the tactics and strategies. But physical health and longevity here. Now this is giving of your time.
Go ahead.
So we're talking about giving money and resources. Giving of your time is also important.
Mm-hmm.
Older adults who volunteer at least 4 hours per week are 40%. Think of that. 40% less likely to develop high blood pressure than non-volunteers. Kind of a big deal.
A lot to be said for that in retirement years.
Well, there is, Joe, and I think that's a real opportunity for many retirees.
Yep.
Okay, a meta-analysis. So they put 37 studies in the hopper and turned it on and came up with a summary that says that volunteers have a 24% lower risk of early death. Do you want to stay alive longer? Volunteer. Isn't that interesting? So that's, there's some other stuff in here, but I think that sets the table for us, Joe, in terms of, another reason to give. It's really good for you. It's good for your soul, as you said, and it can be good for your checkbook too. And that's what we're going to talk about now is how is it good for your checkbook, and what do you do to be as wise as you can in doing that giving. If you're the kind of person who does give funds away, how can you do that in the smartest way possible? It's interesting, Joe, when you look at the total giving across the United States, it has apparently for decades consistently hovered at around 2% of GDP, about 2% of GDP.
Okay.
So the jury's still out for 2025. And I saw some numbers recently from Schwab's Donor Advised Fund as well as Fidelity's, and giving is definitely up. And they noted that giving is up specifically related to some of the Mag 7 stocks.
Right.
Donors are giving those.
Right.
And for our listeners out there, these are the big tech companies like NVIDIA and Meta and Amazon and Apple, Netflix, Microsoft, that have done so well in the last several years. But also, they said, in general, a lot of index funds that investors own, that they're giving these away. They're getting the message that, hey, I've got something that's gone up in value here. Why, if I am the kind of person that gives, why pay the tax on it? Why sell it and pay the tax
Right.
and then give the cash when I can just give that fund or that stock?
That's the key. Say that again, because I think the mistake that some people make is, I've made some money, I'm going to sell it, and then turn the cash over.
Well,
and
that's the
make
big one,
charitable
Joe,
contribution.
is cash really, when you think about it, cash for most people should be the last thing you think about giving. You want to think about, do I have any investments, not in an IRA or 401k,
Right.
but if I have investments outside of an IRA 401k that have gone up in value, the idea is don't sell that investment and turn it into cash and then give the cash, give the investment instead.
Right.
And most charities are equipped to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
And those that aren't, guess what? There's a way that we can help clients and folks out there can help themselves through what's called a donor advised fund.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But
Great.
I was just going to share 2024 total giving in the U.S. $592 billion with a B. A lot of giving.
Nice number.
A lot of money.
Yep.
A lot of money. So 2/3 of that comes from individuals. 2/3. So you think about that. A lot of folks, I think, you think these big foundations or corporations do most of the giving. It's just not true. So foundations give about 19%. Bequests, so that's giving at death, is 8%. Corporations 7%. So when you think about that, Joe, we help clients in two of those four groups.
Mm-hmm.
We help individuals give, and we help those who are planning their estates. Oftentimes giving through an IRA or something like that,
Right.
making a charity the beneficiary, or even like a donor advised fund a beneficiary.
Right.
So with that said, that's a little bit about kind of why we might want to think about giving in addition to tax benefits, and kind of how much money collectively is given. But let's shift gears a little bit.
Talk
and
about some of the tools.
think about some of the tools. So what are some of the tools? Well, you got cash. That's an easy one. Money in the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another tool is I would generally call it appreciated assets. So what would that be? That could be stocks.
We just
bonds.
talked about that.
Stocks. Well, we talked about some of them.
Or real
Some of
estate,
them. It could be real estate.
right?
Could be crypto.
Right.
If you still have a gain there,
Right.
come down a little bit.
Right.
You hear these 1877 cars for kids.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, cars. I mean, there's lots of things that you can give. But generally, what we, inside these four walls are talking about more often, and business interests, we didn't say that. Generally, we're talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, those kinds of investments, because that's what most people have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's easily done.
And it's easily done if you know how to do it, Joe. It's easy for you to
Well, we help our clients through it.
We do. Yeah. So it is easily done. And then of course, another option would be for a certain group that has hit 70.5 milestone, retirement accounts. So this is a relatively new one, but one that's growing quickly, I would say.
The old QCD.
QCD. Joe, what is a QCD?
Qualified Charitable Distribution.
Yes, sir, it is.
Did I answer that right?
You did.
God,
You
okay.
did. Tell us what that is.
Well, it's the ability to take money from your IRA account and have it go directly to the charity and satisfy, your limitation is, the limitation this year is $112,000.
111.
111. I was close. $111,000 you can do. And you still get the charitable deduction. And it's a way to keep your IRMA, right, from being impacted.
Well, look, yeah. So there are a number of benefits to qualified charitable distributions, and for those who have hit 70.5, that is normally where we start with giving, because, like you said, when you give, and we had a question come in on this, and we may have to pick it up after the break, but when you give, it does not, that portion that you give to charity doesn't get included in your income.
Right.
So you mentioned IRMA.
IRMA.
That's a whole nother thing.
My gal IRMA.
Aunt Irma. And so Aunt Irma is the Medicare surcharge, as many of our listeners know, and certainly we deal with this all the time. And really a lot of our planning is to realize enough income to stay away from the next Irma bracket for different clients, depending on what their income sources are. But
you made a statement there that many of our listeners know about IRMA. Many people don't know about IRMA until they get smacked upside the head with it.
Well, that's right.
Really.
And it can be a very rude awakening when you get your statement showing your Medicare premiums going
So we can
up.
get back to that. I hear the music. We can get back to that after the break.
Take it away, Joe.
Okay, Josh.
Joe and Chris, if you want to join the conversation, we got open lines for you, 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO. You're listening to On the Money, where we're planning tomorrow
Today
with the Certified Financial Group. A little piece of property, or I got some inheritance.
CFG has been chosen once again as one of the top 100 financial advisory firms by CNBC of nearly 40,000. And because they won't divulge the selection criteria, asked my colleagues what they thought.
Maybe it's because our history dates back almost 50 years.
Could be because we're independent.
But we custody with national firms like Fidelity and others.
17 CFP professionals under one roof.
Or it could be because we're CFEX certified.
And a real person answers the phone.
In any case, we're proud to have been selected. So if you're looking for financial planning or investment advice for a fee, look us up online. You may be new to the area, but we're not. For more than 40 years, our certified financial planner professionals, acting as fiduciaries and providing retirement planning and asset management for a fee to countless families across Central Florida.
We've been with Certified since 1992.
We're now into the third or fourth generation of clients that have come to CFG and the team here to do a great job.
It's been so long since I've been doing this that I just don't even worry about anything anymore.
We're Certified Financial Group, where we're planning tomorrow, today.
As an investor, you want peace of mind. You need to know that your advisor is not only thoroughly competent, but also a fiduciary. In other words, he or she is acting at all times in your best interests. You need to trust your advisor, regardless of how much money you have to invest or what part of the world you're in. It might not be your money you're entrusting the advisor with. Perhaps you're a board member of a charity or foundation whose future depends on prudent investment. Or perhaps you have the responsibility of making investment decisions on behalf of other people. As the trustee of a retirement plan, the decisions you make can have a direct impact on the lives of your employees. Whatever type of investor you are, the solution is to use an advisor certified by the Center for Fiduciary Excellence. A CFEX certified advisory firm demonstrates its adherence to a global fiduciary standard of excellence, a defined standard with specific criteria covering 21 best practices. The documented, repeatable processes and the evidence-based decision-making that CFEX demands are more likely to generate investment portfolios that match client needs and expectations. And because the firm voluntarily agrees to a rigorous annual audit, investors can rest assured that their advisor continues to work to the highest professional standards. This independent verification is even more critical for trustees and investment committee members of retirement plans who are legally required to conduct regular due diligence on their service providers. Use a CFEX certified firm, and that job has been done already by an expert at no expense to the plan. So why leave anything to chance? Insist on working with investment professionals you can truly trust. Insist on using a CFEX certified advisor.
So you guys don't know Chicago, but I'm sure in your neighborhood you guys have an old school butcher where you walk in and there's a bunch of guys, no gloves, big white aprons, and there's Frank and there's Stevie and there's Mikey. And these guys know more about meat and more about animals and more about cooking the meat than any of us will ever learn. And so you walk in and you say, hey, Lou, I need to, I'm barbecuing this weekend, right? What do you like? And Lou goes to the big racks of stuff he has underneath the glass, and he goes, the veal chops, just in from Argentina, they are the bomb. And you go, veal, oh, I like veal. Well, what do you got on skirt steak? Oh, we got some great skirt steak, just came in yesterday from Montana. Skirt steak is one of my favorite, marinated up a little bit, it's fantastic. Lou will never say to you, Elliot, it's a little long on the meat here, big guy, your cholesterol is getting high. Why don't you go down to the fishmonger a couple blocks and have a nice piece of salmon? Right? He'll never do that. Why? His job is to sell me meat, and I go in, actually the same way I go into the Toyota dealership, because I like Toyotas, and I trust the salesman to sell me a good product if I trust him. And the fact that he's got my interest at heart vis-a-vis my expectations for selling me that thing. By the same token, when I go to see a dietitian, I know she's going to look at all of my labs, she's going to take all the measurements, she's going to run all of her analysis, and she's going to absolutely give me her best thinking on what's best for me. Whether she's a vegetarian or a meat lover, likes this, likes that, if she thinks I should be doing something differently, even if it's not good for her, she's going to give me an opinion that's for my interest. So what's the difference between a fiduciary and the brokers? Well, these are dietitians, these are butchers.
On the money here on WDBO, AM 580, always streaming inside your very own WDBO app. We got Chris Toadvine and Joe Bert, two certified financial planners with the Certified Financial Group, answering your questions today. If you got any, please feel free to call in. We got open lines for you. 844-580-9326 is the number to call. 844-580-WDBO, or as always, send in your open mic using that free WDBO app. We're back to the topic today, which is smart ways to give to charity.
Smart ways to give to charity. Yeah, so let's pick that up, Joe, and let's pick up where we left off. We were talking about qualified charitable distributions, which, of course, is something that only those who have reached 70 and a half years of age are able to take advantage of. And it's worth noting that, you mentioned you can do that from an IRA. You cannot do it from a 401k, right? So it has to be done with an IRA or even an inherited IRA. So, those who have hit 70 and a half, have an IRA or have an inherited IRA and want to give to charity, it's a great way to give. And you're kind of going through, like, what are some of the benefits of giving that way? And the big benefit is that it does not get included in your taxable income. Right? It does not get included. So you don't deduct it. You don't get to deduct it on Schedule A like you would a cash gift or a gift of a mutual fund or something directly to a charity, you don't get to deduct it. But it's not included in your income, which is better for one of the reasons that you mentioned, Joe, and that is that your income is the measure for whether or not, folks in that age group anyway will have to pay a IRMA surcharge on their Medicare premium. So there we go. Now, that said, we did have a question come in yesterday from one of our listeners who had a question about qualified charitable distributions, and this is from Charles. So, Charles, we appreciate you reaching out and want to answer your question. The question is this: when I make a qualified charitable distribution to one or more charities, how do I get 1099 forms to report this on my taxes? So this is a great question, Charles, and I will tell you it's caused confusion for donors and CPAs alike for years.
Right.
And I remember going back 10 years, Joe, a CPA said, well, you can't do that. We said, well, yeah, you can. We had to show them the tax code. And they realized, yeah, it is. It was new at the time. It's not new anymore. But Charles, to your question, the 1099 that you get from your IRA, now here's the thing. You could give all of your, if you're subject to required minimum distributions, you could give all of that amount or more up to $111,000.
Right.
Let's just say...
But only 111 qualifies for the QCD.
That's correct. That's correct. So let's just say hypothetically, Charles, that you have $15,000 of a required minimum distribution, and you're going to give 10 of that to charity. Okay? So you should get a 1099. You will get a 1099 that shows you had a total distribution of $15,000. Well, really, in this example, only $5,000 should be taxable to you. Okay? A new code was introduced last year by the IRS.
Code 7.
And it's on box 7, but the code is Y. Y as in yak or yes.
Or yellow.
Code Y for a qualified charitable distribution claimed by a taxpayer under Section 408A. Okay, we're up on the break again. So I tell you what, Charles, I'm going to wrap this up just on the other side of the break. Stay tuned, and we'll get your question answered. Josh, take it away.
Thank you so much, Charles, Chris, and Joe. You are listening to On the Money, where we're planning today with the Certified Financial Group.
Has been chosen once again as one of the top 100 financial advisory firms by CNBC out of nearly 40,000. And because they won't divulge the selection criteria, asked my colleagues what they thought.
Maybe it's because our history dates back almost 50 years.
Could be because we're independent.
But we custody with national firms like Fidelity and others.
17 CFP professionals under one roof.
Or it could be because we're CFEX certified.
And a real person answers the phone.
In any case, we're proud to have been selected. So if you're looking for financial planning or investment advice for a fee, look us up online. You may be new to the area, but we're not. For more than 40 years, our certified financial planner professionals, acting as fiduciaries and providing retirement planning and asset management for a fee to countless families across Central Florida.
We've been with Certified since 1992.
We're now into the third or fourth generation of clients that have come to CFG and the team here to do a great job.
It's been so long since I've been doing this that I just don't even worry about anything anymore.
We're Certified Financial Group, where we're planning tomorrow, today.
As an investor, you want peace of mind. You need to know that your advisor is not only thoroughly competent, but also a fiduciary. In other words, he or she is acting at all times in your best interests. You need to trust your advisor, regardless of how much money you have to invest or what part of the world you're in. It might not be your money you're entrusting the advisor with. Perhaps you're a board member of a charity or foundation whose future depends on prudent investment. Or perhaps you have the responsibility of making investment decisions on behalf of other people. As the trustee of a retirement plan, the decisions you make can have a direct impact on the lives of your employees. Whatever type of investor you are, the solution is to use an advisor certified by the Center for Fiduciary Excellence. A CFEX certified advisory firm demonstrates its adherence to a global fiduciary standard of excellence, a defined standard with specific criteria covering 21 best practices. The documented, repeatable processes and the evidence-based decision-making that CFEX demands are more likely to generate investment portfolios that match client needs and expectations. And because the firm voluntarily agrees to a rigorous annual audit, investors can rest assured that their advisor continues to work to the highest professional standards. This independent verification is even more critical for trustees and investment committee members of retirement plans who are legally required to conduct regular due diligence on their service providers. Use a CFEX certified firm, and that job has been done already by an expert at no expense to the plan. So why leave anything to chance? Insist on working with investment professionals you can truly trust. Insist on using a CFEX certified advisor.
So you guys don't know Chicago, but I'm sure in your neighborhood you guys have an old school butcher where you walk in and there's a bunch of guys, no gloves, big white aprons, and there's Frank and there's Stevie and there's Mikey. And these guys know more about meat and more about animals and more about cooking the meat than any of us will ever learn. And so you walk in and you say, hey, Lou, I need to, I'm barbecuing this weekend, right? What do you like? And Lou goes to the big racks of stuff he has underneath the glass, and he goes, the veal chops, just in from Argentina, they are the bomb. And you go, veal? Oh, I like veal. Well, what do you got on skirt steak? Oh, we got some great skirt steak. Just came in yesterday from Montana. Skirt steak is one of my favorite, marinated up a little bit. It's fantastic. Lou will never say to you, Elliot, it's a little long on the meat here, big guy. Your cholesterol is getting high. Why don't you go down to the fishmonger a couple blocks and have a nice piece of salmon? Right? He'll never do that. Why? His job is to sell me meat, and I go in, actually the same way I go into the Toyota dealership, because I like Toyotas, and I trust the salesman to sell me a good product if I trust him. And the fact that he's got my interest at heart vis-a-vis my expectations for selling me that thing. By the same token, when I go to see a dietitian, I know she's going to look at all of my labs, she's going to take all the measurements, she's going to run all of her analysis, and she's going to absolutely give me her best thinking on what's best for me. Whether she's a vegetarian or a meat lover, likes this, likes that, if she thinks I should be doing something differently, even if it's not good for her, she's going to give me an opinion that's for my interest. So what's the difference between a fiduciary and the brokers? Well, these are dietitians, these are butchers. It's that simple. Brokers are butchers selling product. Fiduciaries are dietitians looking after your health. The problem is most people think that their butcher is a dietitian.
And welcome back to On the Money here on WDBO AM 580, always streaming inside your very own WDBO app. We got two certified financial planners, Chris Toadvine and Joe Bert with the Certified Financial Group. If you want to hop on the phone, we got Al and Tom calling in for some questions. But if you want to join them, you got a question of your own, by all means, call in 844-580-9326. And just before the break, Chris was talking about a text question he received.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Josh. So Al and Tom, hang in there just another minute here. I want to wrap up this question from Charles in regards to qualified charitable distribution to one or more charities. How do I get 1099 forms to report on my taxes? Well, the first of all, Charles, the company that you gave from, where your IRA is, should send you a 1099. That's number one. So where do you get the 1099? It would be from the company that holds your IRA or companies. I work with Schwab, so Charles Schwab sends my clients their 1099s. Now that 1099 should have a code Y. We were told last year that the IRS was requiring custodians like Charles Schwab, like Fidelity, to use this code for qualified charitable distributions. However, here's the punchline, Charles. I have looked several times this year, and not one of my clients who have given a qualified charitable distribution does their 1099 reflect the code Y. Okay, in box 7, it has a number 7 that says a normal distribution. That means it's not premature or anything, so it is normal in that sense. So here's really what you need to know, Charles. The onus is on you at this point, until the custodians catch up, to keep up with the amount that you gave to charity versus the amount that came to you, okay? And that gets reported on your 1040 line 4A, which is IRA distributions. If you gave, a total of $15,000 you took out, you would include that on line 4A. Let's say 10 of that went to charity and 5 of it came to you. 5,000 that came to you would be taxable, okay? So that would go on line 4B and get included in your income. So only the portion that comes to you is considered taxable. The portion that goes to the charities, the qualified charitable distribution, is included on line 4A. So you have to say, I took out 15, but I only got 5, and that's what you have to pay tax on. So I hope that's helpful, Charles. If you have a follow-up, let us know. You can reach out next week. We'd be glad to clear that up for you if it's not clear there. But we appreciate your question.
There you go.
And Josh, Al?
Let's go to Al.
Let's
You
do
got
it.
it. Thank you. If you want to call in, 844-580-9326 is the number. Al, you're on with the Certified Financial Group. Go ahead.
Good morning, Al. What's up?
Hey, Al.
Hi. Got a question about or advice on the reverse mortgage.
Okay.
My property value is $650. The mortgage is paid off. I have a secured deposit that pays off the tax, property tax, and insurance. I have zero liability. My credit score is 770. Our net Social Security is 3,800. So I'm thinking about applying for a reverse mortgage. What's your advice?
Well, first of all, if you plan on living in this house for the rest of your life,
Yes.
okay, well, that's the first question you want to ask, because there is some cost to set it up. Reverse mortgage will provide you a monthly check for your lifetime and your spouse's lifetime. I presume you're over the age of 62. Is it 62 now or 60?
I think it's still 62, Joe.
So you qualify in that regard, I presume, Al?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can get a check a month. You can set up just a line of credit that you can draw from as you need it. You can get a lump sum of some amount, but the amount that you will receive or that you're eligible for is a function of your age. It's a function of the value of your home or the equity that you have, and it's also a function of your zip code. So it makes sense. I've recommended it to clients, and clients have had great success with it when it's used the right way. And it's, you're really borrowing from, because you're taking the equity from your home. And when you pass on, your debt will be satisfied, and your heirs will get whatever's left. They'll be able to sell the house and get what's ever left after the reverse mortgage has been paid off. So in certain circumstances, it makes sense, Al, particularly if you're looking for income right now and you want to stay in your home. You have to continue to pay the property taxes and the insurance on the property, and that's critical. Of course, maintain the property, that's critical as well. But it'll allow you to free up the equity that you have in your home.
So it's not a bad idea.
If for the right circumstance, yes. And you'll go through they required you to go through an interview to be sure you understand all the ins and outs of it and the costs of it. But it's a very, very powerful tool to be used. In fact, I suggest that people consider it, even though they may not need it. Just set up the line of credit and know that it's there. And it's not a bad safety valve. There's been a lot of stuff written about this in the financial planning press in recent years about people having a reverse mortgage and just letting it sit on a shelf and use it only in times of when the market is down and they don't draw from their investments to maintain their lifestyle. So you draw from your reverse mortgage, it provides you the income, wait till the markets turn around, and then turn that off, and then go back to your investment account. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. It's not for everybody, and you should sit down with a certified financial planner and have him or her determine if that's in your best interest. But I would not rule it out.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and good luck to you. I appreciate the call.
Yeah.
Thank you, Al. If you want to call in, 844-580-9326. What do you say we hit Tom up now, gentlemen?
Let's do it, Tom.
All right,
Hey,
Tom
Tom.
from Windermere, you're on the
Good
air.
morning, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
What's up?
Yes. Good morning. Joseph, you've mentioned a few circumstances where you would not recommend a Roth conversion. Could you please expand on those circumstances?
Well, first of all, I don't like doing Roth conversions if it's going to push you into a 22% or higher tax bracket, number one, generally, okay? My feeling on that generally is, and if you're a regular listener to this program, you've heard me mention this in times past, I read an article for Kiplinger magazine a while back that outlined the fear that I have is that someday they may make your Roth IRA means tested. You know what means tested is, Tom?
Yeah. In other words, if you make X amount of dollars, they're going to limit it to some certain degree.
Right. That's what they did with Social Security. A lot of people don't remember Social Security one time was totally tax-free. Today it's means tested. And I'm afraid that one of these days, with their government's need for capital, need for money, they may look at these billions of dollars that are out there in Roth accounts that have not been taxed and say, your income is a certain level, you ought to give some of that back. I can hear Bernie Sanders right now making that claim. Yeah. So that's my concern about, paying that tax now with the idea that you're going to get that guaranteed, because it's not guaranteed. Anytime Congress is in session, your money's in jeopardy. But you're going to take that big tax hit today with the idea you're going to get tax-free income in the future. So it's not a big a risk if you're in a 10, 12% tax bracket. But when you move up in the 22% tax bracket, you got a pretty big hit. The other thing you want to look at is how you take it out, because it'll affect your taxable income, right, Chris? We talked about that a little
earlier. It will
earlier.
affect your taxable income. And so, look, Tom, I will take a little bit of a counterpoint to what Joe's saying on the 22% bracket. I think it's all relative. I think there are folks out there who have IRAs of a size that even if their kids get it and they take it out over 10 years, the kids are going to be in a greater than 22% bracket. And so I think that it is really situation specific in terms of, when do you make the decision to do a Roth? To your question around, where do you avoid it? I think the biggest, in my way of thinking, or one of the biggest times when you would avoid it is, I had this conversation this week with a client. If you're pre-retirement, let's say, and you're in your peak earning years, and you've got a lot of income, but you're going to be retiring, your income's going to be going down, don't do the conversions now. And this is what I tell them. There is a season in there between retirement and required minimum distributions where typically folks have less income. Maybe they have Social Security, maybe they don't. And for some folks, it's a reason to wait on starting their Social Security if they're aggressively wanting to do Roth conversions. So I think that would be one time not to do it. And I think then that's where the planning comes in. And as Joe said, depending on your situation and what your, I'll say, normal tax bracket and normal income is, what we do is we look at that and say, okay, if you're in the 10%, does it make sense to go to 12? And then how much more income, in addition to what you already have, can you, let's say, budget in order to fill up that 12% bracket and put that amount in the Roth? And I have folks, Tom, that we're doing, some we do 10 grand a year, some we do 75 a year or more. Okay. So systematically, if you're in a season where your income is pretty stable and predictable and you can do this planning, we were talking about qualified charitable distributions. That's these tools can go hand in hand. But if you're in a season where your income is pretty predictable, you can, kind of begin to systematically do these conversions. And I do think it makes sense. I know what Joe's saying. There's always the uncertainty of Congress, and that's what I tell clients. These tax cuts that we got last year were made, in air quotes, permanent, but nothing is really permanent. The next Congress can change that, and that could happen with the Roth. I think it would be very politically unpopular, and but anything's possible. So, Joe?
But I think we touched on a little bit. Some of the tragedies that we see coming into our office for the first time is people last year or the year before made this big Roth conversion. They thought they were going to, I'm going to set myself up for retirement. I'm going to convert my IRA and my 401k into Roth, and it'll be tax-free going forward, and life will be good. And all of a sudden, they realized now they've got IRMA to deal with. They're all of a sudden paying a lot more on their Medicare. And what they also didn't realize is in order for a Roth conversion to work, you have to convert dollar for dollar into that Roth. In other words, if you're in the 22% or greater any tax bracket and you're going to scrape off 10, 12, 22 or more percent of that Roth to pay the taxes, you're behind the eight ball. You're never going to get caught up. You want to have dollar for dollar going into the Roth and pay the taxes with outside money. That's the key to making this work. Otherwise, the math does not work.
Yeah, that's the optimal. That
Right.
is the best way to do it, and that's
Right.
where you get the biggest
The
bang for your buck.
Right.
Does that make sense, Tom?
Yes, I think there's one advantage of investing or making more speculative investments in an IRA instead of pulling it out is because the government's your partner. And if you make a speculative investment and it goes south, well, if you're in, let's say, the 32% tax bracket, the government has lost 32%, along with you losing 68%. But I mean, he's a partner to a certain degree on a speculative investment.
That's interesting, Tom. I've never, I don't think, heard the government referred to as our partner, but I hear what you're saying. So, and it's true. I don't disagree with it. But yeah, as far as Roth conversions, look, it's everyone. This is what makes financial planning so unique. Is it's like our fingerprints. Everyone's situation is different, and it really boils down to what are your objectives. Kind of where are you now? What are your objectives? And like I say, from my perspective, sometimes I get parents that just want to prepay the taxes for their kids because they know they're not going to spend it all. So it really depends. But listen, we appreciate your call, Tom. Very good question. I think a lot of listeners have that question. And if we can help you in any way, give us a jingle next week.
And if you need help right now off the air, Charles Curry, standing by to take your calls at 407-869-9800. You're listening to On the Money, where we're planning tomorrow
Today
with the Certified Financial Group.
Once again, it's one of the top 100 financial advisory firms by CNBC of nearly 40,000. And because they won't divulge the selection criteria, ask my colleagues what they thought.
Maybe it's because our history dates back almost 50 years.
Could be because we're independent.
But we custody with national firms like Fidelity and others.
17 CFP professionals under one roof.
Or it could be because we're CFEX certified.
And a real person answers the phone.
In any case, we're proud to have been selected. So if you're looking for financial planning or investment advice for a fee, look us up online. You may be new to the area, but we're not. For more than 40 years, our certified financial planner professionals, acting as fiduciaries and providing retirement planning and asset management for a fee to countless families across Central Florida.
We've been with Certified since 1992.
We're now into the third or fourth generation of clients that have come to CFG and the team here to do a great job.
It's been so long since I've been doing this that I just don't even worry about anything anymore.
We're Certified Financial Group, where we're planning tomorrow, today.
As an investor, you want peace of mind. You need to know that your advisor is not only thoroughly competent, but also a fiduciary. In other words, he or she is acting at all times in your best interests. You need to trust your advisor, regardless of how much money you have to invest or what part of the world you're in. It might not be your money you're entrusting the advisor with, Perhaps you're a board member of a charity or foundation whose future depends on prudent investment. Or perhaps you have the responsibility of making investment decisions on behalf of other people. As the trustee of a retirement plan, the decisions you make can have a direct impact on the lives of your employees. Whatever type of investor you are, the solution is to use an advisor certified by the Center for Fiduciary Excellence. A CFEX certified advisory firm demonstrates its adherence to a global fiduciary standard of excellence, a defined standard with specific criteria covering 21 best practices. The documented, repeatable processes and the evidence-based decision-making that CFEX demands are more likely to generate investment portfolios that match client needs and expectations. And because the firm voluntarily agrees to a rigorous annual audit, investors can rest assured that their advisor continues to work to the highest professional standards. This independent verification is even more critical for trustees and investment committee members of retirement plans who are legally required to conduct regular due diligence on their service providers. Use a CFEX certified firm, and that job has been done already by an expert at no expense to the plan. So why leave anything to chance? Insist on working with investment professionals you can truly trust. Insist on using a CFEX certified advisor.
So you guys don't know Chicago, but I'm sure in your neighborhood you guys have an old school butcher where you walk in and there's a bunch of guys, no gloves, big white aprons, and there's Frank and there's Stevie and there's Mikey. And these guys know more about meat and more about animals and more about cooking the meat than any of us will ever learn. And so you walk in and you say, hey, Lou, I need to, I'm barbecuing this weekend, right? What do you like? And Lou goes to the big racks of stuff he has underneath the glass, and he goes, the veal chops, just in from Argentina, they are the bomb. And you go, veal? Oh, I like veal. What do you got on skirt steak? Oh, we got some great skirt steak. Just came in yesterday from Montana. Skirt steak is one of my favorite, marinated up a little bit. It's fantastic. Lou will never say to you, Elliot, it's a little long on the meat here, big guy. Your cholesterol is getting high. Why don't you go down to the fishmonger a couple blocks and have a nice piece of salmon? Right? He'll never do that. Why? His job is to sell me meat, and I go in, actually the same way I go into the Toyota dealership, because I like Toyotas, and I trust the salesman to sell me a good product if I trust him. And the fact that he's got my interest at heart vis-a-vis my expectations for selling me that thing. By the same token, when I go to see a dietitian, I know she's going to look at all of my labs, she's going to take all the measurements, she's going to run all of her analysis.
AM 580, always streaming inside your WDBO app. Chris Toadvine and Joe Bert wrapping up another great hour of On the Money, they have for hundreds and thousands of hours here on WDBO. Charles Curry taking your calls off the air if a question pops into your head as this show comes to a close. 407-869-9800. Joe, how do you want to close out this show today?
Well, look, we've got another email question, Josh, that came in this week. I want to hit that, and then I just want to wrap up the topic real quick. I realize we only got a few minutes. So Billy had sent us a question, and it was, if my tax return shows zero taxable income. Okay, so taxable income, Joe, that's his adjusted gross minus the standard itemized deduction. Taxable income, zero.
Yep.
So no amount due and no refund.
Right.
Since I had no withholding. Is there any good reason to file the return with the IRS anyway?
And,
Joe?
Well, the answer is, I thought probably not, a pain in the butt. However, you may be entitled to some credits. Now, this applies to some people, that in order to get the credits, you've got to file your taxes, even though there's no taxes due. So you've got the earned income tax credit, if you got the additional child tax credit, and American Opportunity Credit.
That's right.
And you may be eligible for that, even though you have zero taxes. So that's one thing. And you may be owed, even though that you don't have any taxes due, you may be owed a refund from some money that was withheld.
You may,
from it.
you
Yes,
may.
yeah.
And I tell you, here a couple things that I stumbled across, Joe. So great question. We appreciate the question, Billy. Here's a couple reasons to consider doing it. Number one, you're documenting your financial history. So this could come into play later for mortgages, other loans, or housing assistance and different things like that. So that's a reason. Another reason would be protecting against identity theft.
Right.
Okay. So the sooner that you file that return and the IRS says, yep, Billy filed his return, the sooner that you're closing the door on someone else using your Social Security number to file a bogus return and get a big refund and cause you a bunch of headaches. So that could be a big one. And then lastly would be starting the audit clock. Okay.
Statute of limitations.
The filing will start a 3-year statute of limitations for audits. If you don't file, the IRS can technically audit that tax year at any time in the future. So that may or may not be a concern for you, Billy. But again, I think those are a couple of good reasons that probably say, look, you can file for nothing, hit the button, send it, and be done with it.
done,
And, you know, then you don't have to wonder if someone else in Eastern Europe got your social and filed a bogus return. Okay.
There
So
we
thanks
go.
for the question, Billy. We appreciate it. And Joe, just to wrap up our topic, smart ways to give. We had talked about qualified charitable distributions, and that is a great way for those over 70 and a half. For those who are not over 70 and a half, or maybe they are and they have taxable investment accounts, so non-IRA, non-401k investment accounts. One of the tools that I am using more and more, and I have clients who have had them for 15, 20 years now, are donor advised funds.
Great tool.
So can you tell us in 30 seconds or less what it is?
It's a way for you to make one lump sum contribution, get an immediate tax deduction. It sits in an account, and at a certain time, some point in time, doesn't have to even be the same tax year, you can then designate what charity you want that money to go to. You get the tax deduction in that year, but the money can be doled out in over several years. And you can just select the charity. It's a very simple thing to do. You can do it online on your computer. I use it a lot, and it's a great, great tool. So Fidelity has it, Schwab has it, I know, and we also have a local opportunity.
We do. Well, Central Florida Foundation, which is local, has one, and there are a number of others out there. So if you have a question about a donor advised fund, give us a call. We'll be glad to talk that through with you. One other thing I wanted to mention, Joe, talking about Central Florida Foundation, which is a local community foundation here in Orlando, they do have something called a IRA rollover fund, where you can do a qualified charitable distribution up to $111,000. It's almost like giving it to a donor advised fund, but you have to kind of set in stone up front the beneficiary, the charity that's going to get the money.
Okay.
So anyway, it's a great tool. If you have questions about any of this stuff, give us a call at the office next week, and I'll be glad to talk you through that. Or Charles Curry is taking calls even after the show, so give him a call at 407-869-9800. And Josh, I hear that music.
You've just listened to On the Money, where we're planning tomorrow
Today.
with the Certified Financial Group.